Have you ever wondered what it would be like to send a message to the stars? With Project Starbeam now you can. Personal interstellar messages let you share your thoughts, dreams, and wishes with the universe itself. Your message is encoded and beamed into space, your words traveling where no one has gone before. Visit projectstarbeam.com today and send your own PIM. The stars are waiting. Welcome to the Project Starbeam podcast. We're humanity's interstellar message service, where you can beam your personal messages to the stars. Why send messages? Most scientists agree aliens are out there, and perhaps here. They might be listening, and we target the best listening sites. Aliens who can hear us are also beings we can learn from, maybe having solved the social problems we face today. We do this not because it is easy, but because it is hard. It demands high technology, art, bringing people together from around the world, and along the way, we learn while having fun. We are Project Starbeam.
Thank you, Dr. Daystrom. My name is Chris Kent, co-host. I'm the Chief Science Officer of Project Starbeam. My background is computer science, biology, education, space studies, and entrepreneurship.
My name is Matthias Beach, co-host. I am the chief engineer of PSB, and my background was in satellite systems, fiber optics, telecommunications, construction, and space analog systems.
And I am Dr. Michael Daystrom, co-host, Chief Executive Officer of PSB. My background is engineering, computer science, space studies, cryptography, and business strategy. Now for our next segment.
And now for something a little bit special. We're here with Matthias Beach, and he's our chief engineer. And he is currently, as we talk, inside a sealed environment, a life support environment that's a space analog module at Biosphere 2. Matthias, can you tell us where you are and give us a little bit of background?
Well, hello, Chris. Glad to be on the show. First time on it, so I guess we'll roll with it and see what happens. My name is Matthias Beach. I am the chief engineer for Starbeam. I do work down here in Arizona, Oracle, Arizona, to be specific, at Biosphere 2. Now, we have a facility just down the hill from Biosphere 2, a few hundred yards, called SAM. And SAM is our space analog for the moon and Mars. There are 4 like it on the planet that are sealed, that we can do real experiments on how to live off-world in. And our facility can do 3 phases. It can do pressurized pass-through. So we have a lung, I'll explain that later, that actually mechanically breathes. So when the temperature rises and falls, the lung rises and falls with the expanding and contracting of the gases. So it literally lives when we have it operational.
And I'm guessing so you don't pop windows and that kind of thing, right?
Well, no, we'll keep it to about 1.5 millibars of mercury, and that's like 1 psi pressure. But
very stable. Very stable, yeah.
Right. All the pressure on our doors and the windows are about 600 psi or something like that. So
wow.
They're very strong windows. And let's see. I'm walking back and forth.
Let's go back in time a little, and just for our listeners, let's give them a little background on what Biosphere 2 is.
All right. So Biosphere 2 was a concept invented by John Allen way back in the 70s, 74, I believe. And they were this, people call them a cult, but
scientists,
they kind of weren't scientists though, but they were. It's really weird. It was basically a bunch of hippies that had a vision, and they built a concrete boat and they sailed around the world out of San Francisco Bay before Biosphere was really thought of. And then when it was thought of, they actually traveled the world again and collected plants from all over the planet that's here in the Biosphere. So we have mangrove swamps. Yeah. So we have all sorts of stuff that is not even local to the United States in Biosphere. And it's pretty amazing, especially the tropical rainforest. We have 5 different biomes in the Biosphere. So anyway, going back to when it was thought of, they were thinking how they were really concerned back in the 60s and 70s, all about earth, peace, and love, right? So John Allen and his crew were, long story short, wanting to see how humans can live inside the loop in a condensed area. So this is where the thought of Biosphere 2 came along. Now, the habitat I'm in now, Sam, it was the proof of concept that would eventually lead to Biosphere 2 being built. So I am in the very first, well, this is the 3rd iteration because they were dealing with blower issues and stuff back in the day. But this facility was the one where everybody was locked in here for 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks. That was Linda Lay, to test to see if they could absolutely build this and it would work. And they did. They proved it worked. So 30 years later, after the fiasco and everything got abandoned and this place was left open to the desert for 30 years, we reclaimed it and repurposed it, rebuilt it. We added a 20-foot shipping container and a 40-foot shipping container connected to the test module. So now we have a crew quarters, we have a kitchen, we have a bathroom, we have a workshop. So everything is sealed together, and we also have airlock. But that concept was pretty impressive back in the day with the technology that we had. So that's where the space frame got invented. And I met the engineers. Bill Dawes was one of them that actually built the Biosphere and designed it. And it's pretty incredible. No poles holding this thing up. It's all space frame. It's all encapsulated. It's incredible.
And for our listeners, if you go and look at just Google, Biosphere 2, and you can see loads and loads of great photos of the place because it's a really iconic location. And for you nerds out there, you know what I'm talking about already because this is part of nerd lore. The space frame, they have big pyramidal kind of greenhouses, right? And that's where the different huge biomes are in, right?
Yeah, it's not really greenhouses though.
They're contained, right? So
it's contained. It's one whole huge facility that
right.
Just bleeds into the other one. Now you've got the savanna and the desert that bleed into each other. And then you have to kind of go into the tropical rainforest. It's a little separate area, but they have to kind of do that with the rainforest because they got to keep it super humid. And, they're doing all their experiments with coffee and everything in there. So
right. I so remember like being riveted to the TV. And of course, this is a different era, right? Like this is 80s, 90s TV. There's no internet really. But every piece of news or magazine article I get about this, I remember, just being riveted. And like when the ants took over a whole biome and, all sorts of amazing stuff. Yeah, I remember.
Roaches took over for a little while.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. There was so many interesting stories. And Linda Lay was one of the original 8 Biosphereans. And that was in for 2 years. And she is on our team. And she lives in Oracle. She is my neighbor, literally. And she's one of my best friends. And the stories she tells me are incredible. Like, it's incredible.
Boy, man.
Let's just leave it at it. They built a whole bat cave and everything for bats. Then they realized how much it would take to feed the bats, the insect wise. So they left the bats out of it. So they had a bat cave, still there, that you can crawl into, and kind of Linda would go in there and meditate.
Oh, but the bats are gone, right?
There was never bats.
Oh, there never were.
They built the cave thinking they're going to do them, and then they're like, dude, you need like thousands of pounds of insects a day to feed bats. They didn't realize how much it took. So they're like, nah,
Yeah,
we can't
their
do that.
biosphere just couldn't. Their biosphere couldn't sustain it, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
and,
that's just too
is it
much.
true that the name is because Biosphere 2, because it was Biosphere 1 is our actual terrestrial biosphere, and Biosphere 2 was like the second generation.
Absolutely. That is exactly why they named it Biosphere 2, because Biosphere 1 is Earth.
Right.
So I have a
So,
question, if you don't mind, back to growing the plants and crops and so forth. All right. What is the light source, if you will, that they're using to actually stimulate the growth in the greenhouse?
well, they were using actual sunlight because the whole entire roof, the whole building is glass. So the problem with that, though, when they entered in 91, that was the first of the El Nino or El Nina, whatever it was. So it stayed cloudy most of the time. So that's the first problem that they had. Their plants weren't getting enough sunlight, so everything was dying. And it was because they had no sun. So it was bad timing. If they would have done it like a year or two before or a year or two after, I think it would have been more successful. But the fact that they had no cloud cover and they didn't have artificial lighting really, and they had all these animals, yeah, it was pretty intense from what Linda was saying. They ran out of oxygen. They had to have oxygen pumped in. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, they were very short on calories, as I recall.
Boy, yeah, it was. They resorted, I think, to the only things that were really surviving were bananas, potatoes, beets, a couple other things. But they had crops of corn, and they had all sorts of stuff. They had little rice patties with koi in it. Had all sorts of stuff. Yeah, an ocean that is still active. I mean, the whole biosphere is still active, right? So they're still doing experiments in there in Leo. We still have the ocean. We actually, they are working on installing finally lights over the ocean so that the coral can grow, because the glass blocks the UV that the coral needs to grow. So, for years they've been dealing with this and struggling with it. And now they're finally putting up a light system. And at night, they're working on it at night, since during the day, they got tours and stuff going through. So It's pretty cool to see that part of the biosphere lit up at night. It's very beautiful, especially during, I think, Christmas. They'll light the whole thing up, and it's just incredible. It's incredible.
Very cool. Very cool. And so, tell us a little bit more about the SAM module that you're in right now. The
All right,
modern
so
version.
right now, yeah, the modern version. Well, like I said, we added the 20-foot and the 40-foot containers. We actually have sensors all through the hab now, hooked up to a system called CMOC, which my boss Kai Stats invented and has implemented. It's open source. Anybody can download it, and basically it is a program that will consolidate all your sensors onto one screen, and people are using it for analogs now. It's going to be introduced. Well, we've already got 4 analogs with CMOC in it for the WBA, the world's biggest analog, coming next year, 2025. And I can't remember how many analogs are going to be coordinating together for a 2-week mission, but we're going to have like 10 or 12 analogs go in at the same exact time, and then monitor at the same time what's going on in everybody's hab. And we're going to use CMOC to do it. So we've got one of our main programmers, Ezio. He lives in Milan, Italy, where I just came back from. He has been traveling to Austria and Poland and all these places, installing CMOC for this WBA. So it's pretty exciting, man, that we're going to be one of the central focus points of this huge event that's going on.
Before we move on to the next topic, we ask that you support this podcast, the project, and all of our educational programs for students in need. All you need to do is send PIMs, your personal interstellar messages. While we are a startup, sending a PIM gives you lifetime honorary membership in our community. This is a legacy, your carefully chosen words beamed to the stars, and lifelong fellowship in a good cause. Visit projectstarbeam.com to send your personal interstellar messages today. Now back to the episode.
It's very interesting. I mean, the EU is doing a lot of work on the analog and then closed loop life support scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they also did the only microbial foundation. Like they tried to engineer, I think it's called Melissa, but they tried to engineer a whole biosphere, but right from the microbes on up. And there's still a lot of science to be done. People, I've heard things said about analogs where they say, well, oh, that's old hat. We did that in the 70s, da 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 da. But actually, it's not true because, I mean, just like your example of the coral, like that's some fundamental science that just no one has had a chance to implement. Okay, coral, we need UV. They left the UV out. It just, no one's really built a regenerative life support system ever, that really works. So it's still unresolved science.
Yep. And that's what we're here trying to resolve those questions. So
now you're on day 3 of a 3-day stint, correct?
Right. And I am in here for a CO2 study. So basically we sealed up the entire environment and I just I'm on a strict vegetarian diet. I had been for 2 days prior to coming in and then 3 days in here. Everybody that comes in here, we have 12 people total. And I'm like number 6 or 7. 7. Yeah. 6. Maybe I'm in the middle. Anyway.
So you're 6 of 12, basically.
Yes, I'll have to look at the list. 6 of 12.
6 of 12. That's your Borg designation. Yeah.
6 of 12. Love it. Too bad 7 of 9 wasn't my wife, but
but technically, you'd be in Unimatrix 2, not Unimatrix 1. But anyway.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
version 2.0.
Right, so.
All right. So I'm in here for the CO2 study. So like I said, it's sealed up and I'm on this diet and I have to exercise 30 minutes a day. We have to annotate everything, every minute that we're in here of what we're doing. But we go in blocks of 10 minutes. So it's kind of interesting to log everything. I have to log all the weight of my food, I have to weigh it out, portion it, blah, 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 annotate it so that we have accurate records of everybody's CO2 footprint in here. So once we get through everybody coming in here, which should be the end of this month, in January or February, we're going to start plant studies. So the whole idea of this was, okay, we want to get a bunch of people in here with it sealed, get CO2 studies. Okay, this is your CO2 markers. Now we want to take one species of plant and grow it in the test module and then do those recordings. Then we will put one of us back in here with the plants and then do the comparison on if it's scrubbing anything out of the atmosphere or not. If that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so you're getting a profile for humans,
Baselines.
right? Yeah,
Baselines. Yep.
baselines for humans, and then a baseline for each species of plant, and you're kind of eventually building a rudimentary biome, one piece at a time, right?
Yep. The whole idea of what we're doing here is we will be um, living in this thing without mechanical CO2 scrubbing. So
Right.
what we want to do is find the plants that produce the most uh, oxygen, right? And then do the most CO2 scrubbing. And I think there's 3 different types of plants we're going to be growing. So this whole experiment is a 2-year experiment, by the way. So we just started it. And at the end of the 2 years, we will have some pretty good data on what plants do well, what plants don't. Because eventually we want this whole place full of plants and the lung and the TM, algae bags everywhere, and be able to live in here for 6 months. And I'm also working on getting us off the grid solar-wise. So hopefully by end of next year, that will happen. And we'll be totally independent facility. So yeah, it's pretty exciting the direction we're
Right.
going here.
And that way, if you do a long-term study, there's no grid outage. Nothing's going to interrupt it. You're
exactly.
independent. Yeah.
That's a problem right now because a lot of the power that we get from here from the Indian reservations, and it's dirty power. So it's wreaking hell on our transformers and our equipment here. So power does go out often
Especially
here.
electronics, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So luckily we have not had anybody in sim when power has gone out, because when that happens, sim's over. We have to get them out. It's done. So we don't want that to happen in a 3-month mission. A month and a half in, all of a sudden power goes out and the mission's done, and you kind of screwed yourself on the whole experiments that you had placated and everything.
Waste of time, waste of money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you want to avoid that for sure. And that it's an interesting approach. What you're doing with the one baseline, one species profile at a time. Because it really contrasts with the original, which, I have to give it to the people. In the 70s and the 80s, they did have, some notions about ecology, and like they had the Gaia theorem. You probably both remember that quite well, where, there was a lot of thought about it. Was almost, but like you say, I hesitate to use the word cult, but there was definitely a spiritualism behind it, right? Like that. The world, Mother Nature could balance itself, and you just had to. There were a lot of legitimate scientists who said you just have to make it scale enough. And so I can see what they were trying with Biosphere 2, but which obviously was really, the scale is still not nearly enough for that to happen. Hence the ants and the roaches and the crazy unbalanced things. But yeah, building it one part at a time at least would give us a, in the medium term, let's say when there's a moon base in 10 years or whatnot, at least would give us a hybrid system where, okay, they're going to have tanks of oxygen, they're going to have CO2 scrubbers, but they're only lightly used because a lot of the work is being done by some sort of a biome.
Right. So
that's fascinating. You could be like, you're engineering the beginnings of that right now.
Yeah, and I'm also building out the hydroponics racks. Well, already built out 4, but I'm also building out with the assistance of Sean Gellenbeck and Luna Powell. That's here, or Luna's my right hand woman, I guess here. So we're building out a control rack. So now finally we're going to automate our hydroponic systems. So today, once we get off here, I'm going to go and hook up some tubing and mount a pump and start getting that ready. I got to go through some programming stuff for the Campbell Scientific equipment that we're using. So I got to look and see. We're having some issues with lights just coming on. So I got to look into that. But yeah, so I'm building that out. We're constantly working here, constantly upgrading this place. Like I said, it's one of 4 on the planet, and it's probably the only one that most people can actually pay to get into, because the other one, NASA has that you got to be pretty much an astronaut to go in there and to train in there. But as far as I know, we're the only one that is hermetically sealed and pressurized pass through. So we can, put it in 3 different modes if we want.
And now, does that include the one that Roscosmos used to run, or maybe still runs? I have no idea. I mean, with the current situation, what's going on there? But they ran a huge sealed study environment, right?
Where at?
Roscosmos, the Russians, the Soviets.
Oh yeah. That's one of the other 4. It's over
That's
there.
one of the 4. Okay, right.
Yep.
And who knows? Is that even still operating?
Who knows? Probably.
Who knows,
I would
right?
say yes. I would say yes.
Yeah, they've got it already built,
because,
right? So why not?
Well, these facilities are so rare that you don't want to just let it flop. I mean,
yeah,
crap. The cost of it. I mean, we got lucky with renovating this, but dude, to actually build this out would be millions, and we did it for like 300,000.
Well, and this shocked me a little bit, because of course we talked about this before, off camera, off audio. But it shocked me, even just when you said earlier now, where like it was all just left open to the desert, and that's just strikes me as such a backwards thing.
It's so sad when you walk out. There's so many abandoned buildings, like the whole top of the hill. There's a whole hotel system overlooking everything. That's just javelinas living there, and bats, and doors are open. Electricity still powers those things, and no one's been in there for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
The test module door, when Kai reacquired it, was open, was literally open, and they had to shovel out feet of feces and dirt, and everything was rusted. They had to re-grind everything and paint. And dude, yeah, we have a blog that logs.
So there's been some elbow grease.
Yes. SamB2.space. And let me repeat that. SamB2.space is our blog. And it's been a running blog that Kai has been working on since the very first day of this project 2.5 years ago. So if you want to see what we've really been doing, skim through that thing. Also, if you guys want a really good grip on how John Allen and those guys were thinking, you should watch Spaceship Earth. It is solely about Biosphere 2.
Okay. I do have a question for you in reference to the long-term plan, say, 5 years out. Where do you see this?
Where do I, what now?
Where do you see it? Say,
see it in 5 years? Well, I know the Mars yard is just going to be ridiculously awesome in 5 years. I mean, we still haven't even done the floor, put the regolith or the piping system. We haven't done any of that yet. It's just going to be crazy. We are looking at redoing this shipping container, the 40-foot, because it leaks. I mean, our leak rate in this facility is less than the ISS, but we still have leaks. It still leaks. So we're trying to get it as sealed as possible. And when they purchase this 40-foot shipping container, and this is a note for any of you guys that want to build a sealed facility, do not get an insulated freaking shipping container. Don't do it, because there are gaps everywhere. You can't see them, but they're in the walls. And they have had nothing but problems on trying to seal this 40-foot, even though it's got 2 walls and it's insulated. So the 20...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say the 20-foot container that they bought was not insulated, and it's almost fully sealed. So it's kind of weird on, you would think, hey, yeah, it's insulated, it's totally sealed. It was not. Was not.
You just answered.
So what you got it. Yep. Sorry.
No, I said you
Go
just
ahead. What was
my
it?
question. Which was
okay.
is it better to buy a container that's not insulated and insulate it yourself?
Yes. Yep. Because you can pressurize it, see where the leaks are, get to them if you need to do welding spots or do whatever. You can do all that. Then you can insulate it. So lesson learned, but I think we're still mulling that over, ripping this 40-foot container out and then putting another one in here that's not insulated and redoing it. So that's still on the table. Because we want this thing, like, we want it pressure. We want to be able to be like, yeah, we're losing like 1%. Like that would be insane to have it that sealed. Insane. But that's what we need.
So 1%
exactly
over what kind of time period?
Over a month.
Oh, that's actually pretty impressive. Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of where we want to get to.
And that includes losses from like airlock use and all sorts of miscellaneous mishaps.
Sure. But the whole idea is to inflate the lung 4 feet off the ground and not have to turn on the blower to reintroduce air into the system for a month. That's the idea.
That's the idea. Well,
and
it
then,
does show you the challenge that these people are up against, the engineers who are built the ISS and are building the next generation of space stations and are trying to do it in a mass manufacturing mode, some of them. Like it's a non-trivial thing to keep an atmosphere in.
Yeah, you guys, I now have a very good grip on how all that works.
Well, when we build our space cruisers.
Well, it's impressive because, before I got into the space world again, because, I was Air Force Space Command back in the 90s. And my job was satellite communications. And I was a satellite communications maintenance technician. So I maintained all that equipment, Shreve Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. But I never knew that the ISS leaked, right? And I in my mind, I thought everything had to be super, super sealed to go to space, or it would just implode or explode. Turns out, nah, it can leak. It could do this. Shoot, the Russians, I don't even know how Soyuz is still working, but that's the most reliable spacecraft ever to this point. And they use a stick to flip switches.
Vodka. The answer is extra vodka.
Yeah, it's crazy. And now it's like, well, shoot, we actually got a little bit more leeway than I thought.
Let's take a moment for this important message. Project Starbeam invites you to boldly go where no one has gone before. With personal interstellar messages, your words can travel to the stars, seeking out new life and new civilizations. Whether it's a wish, a memory, or a message for the future, send it out into the universe. Visit projectstarbeam.com and launch your message today. Now back to the episode.
So it's kind of more exciting. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. It has to be about 99. So
and this is some of the interesting things too with space in general. Like people often, unless you work with the science or the tech, people don't realize, for example, how difficult it is to generate a vacuum on Earth, where really there's only a few places on the planet where they generate a really hard space-like vacuum, and it takes such engineering to do it, and it's still not nearly as clean as the vacuum you'd get up in, say, geostationary or something. It's not even comparable, And so, yeah, there's a lot of people don't realize the potential in space just because it's so extreme and so, it's difficult, but the promise is just on so many fronts. The future is bright there for sure.
You know what I love is when people are like, well, we should do more stuff here, protect this planet, than go to space. I love talking to those people. I'm like, how do you think that we have all this information at our fingertips right now? How do you think we know, that this is coming, or this is coming, or that hurricane's coming, or tornado spot? It's because of space and the stuff we're putting in space. So we are looking after the Earth. And if we don't go
That's
to
right.
space, we are neglecting our planet. That's how
That's
I look
right.
at it.
Yeah, that's
Well, and this is a
absolutely,
miss. Go ahead. Go ahead.
absolutely correct. And as somebody that's been working in the field of technology, manufacturing, supply chain, and computer science over the decades, I have to say I have great appreciation for what you folks are involved in.
Well, and I appreciate that, but it's a long time coming. This should
Yes.
have been done 25, 30 years ago. We should already be on Mars. I mean, this is politics got in the way, and thank goodness things are about to change. So
Yeah.
expect in the next 4 years some massive, awesome space stuff happening. Guarantee it.
That's it. Let's hope Jared gets in there as head of NASA.
Yes, and that, boy, I got goosebumps just when you said that. I could not believe he got selected, but I can believe it. So,
yeah.
What better person? I never did really, hopefully Bill Nelson doesn't listen to this, but I never really did like him. The impression I got, he is an old senator, he's old ways, he's looking out for himself and listens to everybody else, and he just looks shady. That's the impression I've always gotten from him. And now with Jared, oh man, this should be and he's like 41.
Yeah.
He is.
Well,
he's younger than us.
New blood has to come in at some point, right? I mean, but to credit where credit is due, even though it's layered in bureaucracy, so that's it's you're like swimming in amber. But despite all of that, you do have some incredibly smart people doing excellent work.
Oh,
at
absolutely.
NASA. And I think once that potential is once they unlock the ability of these people to just do things, just get the mission done, just go and make it happen, and getting rid of cost plus contracting and all that kind of thing. It's going to be, I think there's going to be a brilliant renaissance.
And that's it. The budget is going to change. The defense budget will drop. NASA will get more money now. I'm telling you, this is going to be amazing to watch the next 4 years.
Yeah, it is.
With Elon cleaning house too. This is just crazy. This reminds me of something out of a movie. Just keep thinking I'm watching some movie, but it's real life.
And I still have faith. I still have faith in Starship.
Yeah.
I was never a super fanboy of like some of the you see people who are rabid supporters, but you just can't ignore, despite everything, all the detractors and whatnot, you can't ignore what they've done at SpaceX. And this is also Gwen Shotwell. She's a big reason.
Yeah. Yes.
Elon knows a lot of things, and he is a very competent engineer from the perspective that he knows. But he also knows how to pick good people and how to get performance out of them. And that's something like, look at what they've done with Falcon and Falcon Heavy. And, there's still a lot of roadblocks, but no one's developed a completely reusable rocket ever, And I mean, you see a lot of people trying. You see the Europeans are trying to copy it. The Chinese have dumped how many billions into trying to copy? No one's even close.
If you think about this, a second stage of a rocket has never come back to Earth except for in a fiery ball.
Yeah.
Starship is the first second stage part of a ship that has made it back successfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my other thing. We got so much waste going up there. Like SLS, what a freaking waste. I mean, we're
That's
past
old
that point
school.
now.
That's old school
We're
cost
past
plus
that point.
contracting. Yeah, yeah.
Past that point. And I'm pretty sure Jared's gonna have all that change. People are like saying it's scrap SLS, scrap SLS. But
You know
I
what
don't
else
know.
I'm actually excited for? I am actually excited for New Glenn,
Yes.
because it's a it's an upscaled version of Falcon 9. It's got a bigger fairing. It's beefier. It can handle more
Mhm.
payload. And if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think New Glenn has a better transfer orbit payload profile. So it can do a better job. Like Falcon 9 is to a certain extent very good at low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, that kind of thing. But for probes and for sending things to other worlds, New Glenn, I think it's very exciting. And
Is it
I just
New
hope
Glenn or is it New Shepard that's
New
doing the
Shepard is
orbital?
the suborbital one. New Glenn is
Or
their
okay, Shepard's the
yeah,
suborbital. Okay.
that's it. Yeah, the little yeah, it looks like yeah. So it goes up and it comes down. But the New Glenn is going to be and I think it's supposed to launch pretty soon. Because
I'm looking right now.
they just did the I know they did tests to actually fit it, and they actually raised it on the launch platform, and that was only a couple weeks back. So I mean they're getting close, but they do frustratingly. I mean, get on with it. Launch the thing. I want to see this thing go up. I mean, because it is the thing too is that it is not good to just have one supplier. I mean, from a
Right.
strategic point of view, from a review point of view, like even though the FAA and whatever that might become, even though it's annoying, but you do need to have safety review process. You do need some kind of process like this, and so
Mhm.
you want that competition, and you want that dual pipeline. That's a very desirable thing.
Yes. And yeah, New Glenn, it's no earlier than this month launching. So probably soon,
So
next couple
soon, yeah.
months. The launch pad was built in February or unveiled in February. So yeah,
There we go.
cost per launch, $68 million.
Yeah, which really, and a lot of that, I imagine a lot of that is really still an artificial. It's a synthetic cost. It's
Yeah, they don't know.
insurance. It's insurance. It's regulatory compliance. It's permits. All of these kind of things. All the because every permit that you have to go through. And I'm not saying again. I'm just want to be clear. I do think there needs to be a vetting process. You can't just let people do whatever they want, right? There needs to be some
Right.
kind of an appropriate process. Um, but the more layers of process you add, the more it costs. And that's nice from a job generation point of view, I suppose. But it just when like 68 million for New Glenn, and that's because they have to discard the second stage. That's
Yep.
ultimately not reusable. Are they doing fairing reuse like Falcon?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good
I don't
question.
know.
I have to check that up.
That's a good question. I have to look it up
But
too. I
I'm sure
know.
they can. I mean, I'm sure they can. It's very feasible, right? I mean, it's demonstrated.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
SpaceX is doing it, right? But
Right.
if you talk now again, this is Elon numbers. So Elon tends to be optimistic when he presents his numbers.
Hmm.
But he's saying he's kicked out numbers in the 2 to 10 million range per launch for
Yeah.
for Starship.
For Starship.
Which yeah, there's no way that includes insurance though. There's no way that it just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because people are going to have to still pay insurance because you don't want your. I mean, it's still a
Satellite
rocket, right?
blowing up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Absolutely.
If you're putting up a $2 billion worth of hardware, well, you're going to pay for the insurance, so that'll,
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
It's all new. right? It's a new world right now. So everybody's trying to figure everything out. So
But the
space law,
exciting
that's
part is
new.
that, yeah, your facility there, circling back, your facility there, um, that's approximately, like, within an order of magnitude, I would say. That's approximately what the habitable volume of a passenger starship is going to be.
Yeah, 100 people.
Mhm.
I don't. I
We've
don't
had
think they'll get 100 in there. I really don't. I don't think so.
mm,
But that's, again, I think that's Elon numbers. Even if they got 50 in there, you know,
mm,
um, 100 people to the moon. Okay, I would buy that. As like a liner.
yeah.
Because it's only like,
Well,
you need a couple weeks worth of life support. Maybe a month on the outside for safety tolerance, right?
right. Yeah,
But for Mars, no way. Yeah.
yeah, back in 23, we every year, well, since 22, we have the Analog Astronaut Conference here at Biosphere 2. So Cyan Proctor comes. I've talked to her, God, I don't know how many times now, but she lives in Phoenix. And so uh, in 23, we had 65 people in this facility in the lung, and it's rated for 4. And we're like, shit, man, we could probably get another 40 people in here. We can pack
There
them in
you
here.
go. There you go. Yeah, and for short trips, I buy it. I buy it like for a
Yeah.
liner to the moon. So, Dr.
Yep.
Daystrom, would you
But
take a
anyway,
ticket to the moon?
What was that again?
yeah,
Would you take a ticket to the moon?
Absolutely.
100%.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too.
That
Yeah.
would be incredible.
I'm hoping to get to the point where I'll be one of the guys building stuff on the moon. That's kind of my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. I think it's
I
a feasible goal.
Yep. To
and I'm gonna try and do it without a degree. I am going straight military experience and just OJT training, and the stuff I put out. People are like, "That is incredible." I've been to MDRS this year. I was paid to go to MDRS this year to check out that facility to see the upgrades that we need to do with James Burke, which is the he's not executive director, is he? No, of the Mars Society. So he's number
I
2
think
under
I think he
Robert
is.
Zubrin. Yeah, he
Oh,
might
Zubrin.
be.
Oh, Zubrin's. Yeah,
Yeah,
Zubrin's maybe
Zubrin's the big guy.
right.
So Burke is
Yeah.
right under him, and we're really good friends, And he wants me to go to Flashline this year with a team, and that's the Arctic MDRS, and to do some work up there in July for 2 weeks. So
Nice.
I'm on that Arctic mission team. Uh, the conference calls on that every other Sunday, going through the list, how we deal with the locals and getting diesel, because you got to fly a bush plane into where we got to go. I mean, it's like $10,000, $14,000 a person just to get there.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
nuts. But I'm working with all these people because they see the work I do. And that's what I want to do. If we're going to get 1 million people on Mars, we got to train people somehow. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
well,
That's
we're
it.
not going to do it with our current stuff. There's no way.
Yeah, and they're going to have to know. I mean, they're going to have. There's going to be a lot of knowledge duplication. Because it's a dangerous environment. Each of those people who go will need intensive cross training in so many different things.
Yes.
Someone has to fix it, otherwise everyone
Yep.
perishes. Yeah, yeah.
Well, another
That's it.
exciting thing over in the UAE, they're wanting to build a $200 million Biosphere 3,
Oh, very nice.
which is going to be a lot bigger than this one. And it won't be sealed. But I got a mutual friend of ours, Mac McCowie. He is
Right.
actually fighting with them on, or not fighting, but suggesting to them that they should probably do a sealed environment. Why put all this money into it if you're not going to really test a biome or a biosphere?
Yeah. Or
So,
even just enough, seal it enough that you can measure gas transfer, just so you can
yes.
take the data on what levels of things are changing. And then as long as you can get the deltas on everything, then
Mhm.
you can interpolate and extrapolate whatever you need for an actual sealed environment. But yeah, it's got to be. Well, of course, you and I, all three of us have talked about this before. When we build our analog someday, soon, I hope. Um, you know, there are so many things. There are so many closed loop systems that can really help people here on Earth. I mean,
Hmm.
I look at some of the environmental degradation, like some of the just flat out environmental disasters that are happening around the world, and just even the fact that when people go to a place, and this is the pattern of industrialization, the pattern of urbanization is, people go and they move to a place, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, because the farming's good, the soil's good. But that's where the cities start. And then the
Hmm.
city ends up growing over the best land. And people don't understand that you just like with unless we radically change agriculture, and it has to actually get beyond agriculture, it has to be horticulture and permaculture. um, Most land is utterly useless for growing food. You can't. It's
Yeah.
just not useful. And
Yep.
so, doing things like understanding how biomes get together on a Lego block style basis, like you're all doing over there, is just so vital to not only to space, but to our
The planet.
civilizational survival here. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean
Absolutely.
the planet will go like the planet would go on fine, right? Like you see those
Yep.
what's the movies the TV shows that you see on Discovery once in a while where they're like after humans left, and then you see all the buildings slowly
Yeah.
decay.
Oh yes,
You know, yeah,
life after humans. Yes.
right,
Mm.
exactly. And that would be like I mean the planet is going to adapt, but without I mean, there's really, in terms of mainline crops on the world, there's maybe a couple dozen crops that provide most of the food for humanity on Earth, and most of the feed for animals too.
Animal.
Um, and and yeah, like without those crops, which need to grow in fairly specific conditions, yeah, there is no civilization. So yeah, and that's where I think what we're doing too in the long run, some of our scientific initiatives that we've got planned, um, is it's really important stuff. And you and Kai and the crew there are also working on it's so much more than just space exploration, which is super cool. I mean, I'm a space cadet guy from as a kid, but it's
Hmm.
just so much more vital than people realize.
Yes.
Yeah, if I might jump in here, two things. We're coming up on our hour, but the
Oh,
thing
okay.
that I do want to mention is, and this is Matthias, you and the crew, in reference to what you're doing, as well as the role that that will play in space in the future. The awesome thing is everything that you're doing for space right now will eventually be able to help those on Earth. But it's from the perspective of, if we didn't embrace space and exploration and, the initiatives that are out there, um, I don't think we'd be getting very far.
I agree. I agree.
Well, that's it. That's it.
Right.
Well, and there's
Yep.
there's a good way to spend an hour. I love it, and thank you for hosting us in virtually as it is in the SAM module at Biosphere 2.
It was my pleasure. And yeah, I'll be out of here in like 5.5 hours, which is kind of cool. It went fast, man. I could have been 2 weeks in here. I think I really could have.
Well, there you go. Well, I mean, we know you, and you have a way of always keeping yourself busy. So there's always something to do,
Bel
right?
Believe me, I brought my
There you
laptop.
go. There you
Good.
go.
All right.
And but you guys were amazing. Thanks. I can't wait to get on the next podcast.
Yeah, more and more, we're all learning how to do it, and this has been a great hour. Dr. Daystrom, closing remarks.
Again, I just kind of come back to everything that we've talked about here, and I think that aspects of what we're doing, we hold the future in our hands, with the help of all the resources that we're building and embracing and such. Before we go, we have an exciting opportunity for you. You can present Project Starbeam as an official ambassador and earn great returns on selling PIMs or other merchandise. Whether you send your own PIMs, represent the project, or even just share the project and podcast with others, everything supports our educational programs for students in need. Want to know more? Visit projectstarbeam.com/orientation.